Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Mark.
And I'm Chad. Ready for a deep dive into something that could seriously change the way you learn and work?
Absolutely. Today we're going big. We're combining two of the most powerful learning strategies out there into one episode. We're talking about the Feynman Technique and the 25/5 study method.
Two strategies that, on the surface, seem totally different. One is about how you understand information, and the other is about when and how long you study. But together, they're a seriously powerful combo.
Exactly. Think of it this way. The Feynman Technique is your engine, and the 25/5 method is your fuel system. One makes sure you're learning deeply. The other makes sure you have the energy and focus to keep going without burning out.
I love that analogy, and I've personally used both of these, so I'm excited to break them down with real examples today. Let's start with the Feynman Technique, since that's the foundation of everything.
Perfect. So, the Feynman Technique is named after Richard Feynman, Nobel Prize-winning physicist, one of the greatest scientific minds of the 20th century. But the method he used to learn isn't just for scientists, it's for anyone who wants to truly master anything.
And the core idea is beautifully simple. If you can't explain something in plain, simple language, like you're talking to a child, then you don't really understand it yet. You might have memorized it, but understanding and memorization are very different things.
That gap between thinking you know something and actually knowing it is what the Feynman Technique is designed to expose. And closing that gap is where real learning happens.
So how does it actually work? There are 4 steps. Step 1, choose the concept you want to learn. It could be anything. Quantum mechanics, how to negotiate a salary raise, the rules of chess, how compound interest works. Anything.
Step 2, explain that concept as if you're teaching it to someone with zero background in it. Write it out. Say it out loud. Record yourself. No jargon, no complex terms, plain language only.
Step 3, identify where your explanation breaks down. Where do you stumble? Where do you reach for jargon because you can't find a simpler way to say it? Those are your gaps. And gaps are gold. They tell you exactly what you still need to work on.
And step 4, go back to your source material, fill those gaps, and try explaining again. Repeat until you can walk someone through the entire concept clearly and simply.
When you boil it down like that, it seems almost too simple. But the reason it works is because it forces active engagement. You're not passively reading or rewatching a video. You're producing, you're generating. And that's where memory really sticks.
There's actually a psychological concept behind this called the illusion of competence. It's when you feel like you understand something because you've read it multiple times and it seems familiar. But familiarity isn't understanding. The Feynman Technique breaks that illusion fast.
So fast. The moment you try to explain something and can't, that's your brain telling you the truth. And I think there's something weirdly liberating about that. Instead of panicking about what you don't know, you now have a clear map of exactly what to fix.
Chad, you've actually used this for some pretty specific things. Tell us about that.
Yeah, one of the clearest examples for me was when I was trying to understand blockchain and crypto. The concepts felt overwhelming. Distributed ledgers, consensus mechanisms, smart contracts. I was reading articles and nodding along, but I couldn't have explained any of it in a real conversation.
The classic nod and pretend situation.
Exactly. So I sat down and tried to write a blog post explaining blockchain as if my mom was reading it. No technical terms. And immediately, I realized I had no idea how consensus mechanisms actually worked. I could recite the words, but I couldn't explain the idea.
And what did you do?
I went back, read specifically about consensus mechanisms, watched a couple of videos, and then tried again. Third attempt, it finally clicked. And once it clicked in simple terms, it stayed. I could then use that foundation to build on more complex ideas because I actually had a real base.
That's exactly it. You build mental models, solid foundations that make future learning faster. Instead of isolated facts that fade, you have connected frameworks that grow.
And the same thing happened when I was learning guitar. I wasn't just memorizing chord shapes. I started explaining to myself why certain chords sound good together, what the theory was behind scales and progressions. And suddenly I wasn't just playing songs, I was understanding music.
That's the leap from skill to mastery. When you know the why behind the what, you can improvise, adapt, and create, not just repeat.
And honestly, explaining things out loud also kills that fear of sounding stupid. When you've wrestled with a concept enough to simplify it, you stop being scared of it. You've already had the hard conversation with yourself.
Confidence is a huge side effect of the Feynman technique that people don't talk about enough. You go from imposter syndrome to genuine competence because you've actually done the work to earn that competence.
And here's a tip for people who feel weird talking to themselves. Start by writing. Write out your explanation like a blog post or a letter to a friend. Or use visuals. Draw diagrams, sketch flowcharts, make a mind map. The visual and verbal combination is incredibly powerful for memory.
I had a biology professor in college who used stick figure drawings to explain cell functions. Ridiculous-looking drawings. But I still remember those lessons years later because the visual made it personal and tangible.
That's the Feynman technique in action, even if he didn't call it that. And here's the thing. When you create your own visuals, you're proving to yourself that you understand something well enough to represent it. That's a deeper level of processing than just reading.
Now, a question people often ask, does this work for subjects that are heavily memorization-based, like learning a new language or medical anatomy?
Great question. The Feynman technique isn't only for conceptual understanding. It actually helps with memorization too, because when you anchor a vocabulary word or an anatomical term to a simple explanation of what it means and does, you're giving your brain hooks to hold on to. It's way more durable than rote repetition.
For languages especially, if you can explain a grammar rule in your own words or teach a phrase to a friend with context, it becomes part of how you think rather than just a fact you're trying to remember.
Alright, so that's the Feynman technique, the engine of deep learning. Now let's talk about the fuel system, the 25/5 study method.
For anyone who hasn't heard of this one, it's been absolutely blowing up on social media lately, and honestly, the hype is deserved. The concept is simple. You work for 25 minutes of pure, focused, zero distraction effort. Then you take a 5-minute break. Repeat 4 times, then take a longer break of 15 to 30 minutes.
It sounds almost too straightforward, right? But the science behind it is rock solid. Our brains can only sustain truly focused attention for about 20 to 30 minutes before fatigue starts creeping in and performance drops. The 25/5 method works with that natural rhythm instead of fighting it.
And think about what most people do instead. They sit down for a 2 or 3 hour study session with no structure, no breaks, gradually losing focus, eventually doom scrolling their phone, and then feeling guilty about it. The 25/5 method eliminates all of that.
It replaces that vague, guilty grind with something structured and sustainable. You know exactly how long you're working, you know a break is coming, and that knowledge actually makes it easier to stay focused during the work period.
There's a psychological principle behind this too. When your brain knows relief is coming, it's much better at tolerating temporary discomfort. It's the same reason a workout feels easier when you can see the timer counting down.
And the breaks aren't wasted time. That's a huge mindset shift. The 5-minute breaks are productive rest. They're when your brain consolidates what you just worked on, resets your attention, and prepares for the next round.
What you do during those breaks matters a lot though. The goal is low stimulus recovery. Get up, stretch, grab some water, look out the window, take a few deep breaths. Not scroll Twitter or check Instagram. That's just switching one kind of screen fatigue for another.
Right. Those small rewards are tempting on the break, but they eat into the recovery. I think of the 5 minutes as genuinely giving my brain a rest, not just a different kind of stimulation.
Now, one thing that surprises people when they first try this method is how much they can actually get done in 25 minutes when they're truly focused with zero distractions. Phone away, notifications off, one task, full attention.
25 focused minutes will be an hour of half-hearted, distracted studying every single time. Quality of attention matters more than quantity of time. That's the core insight.
I used to think 25 minutes was too short to really accomplish anything meaningful. But then I realized I was thinking about it wrong. The question isn't how much can I finish in 25 minutes? It's how deeply can I engage in 25 minutes? And the answer is very deeply.
And there's a beautiful anti-procrastination effect that comes with it. When a huge task looms over you, it's paralyzing. But saying I'll just do 25 minutes on this makes it feel completely manageable. You lower the barrier to starting, and once you start, momentum kicks in.
That first session is always the hardest, but the second, third, and fourth get easier because you're building flow and familiarity with the material.
And finishing each 25-minute interval feels like a small win. You check it off. That small sense of accomplishment keeps your mood up and makes the whole task feel less daunting as you go.
Let's talk about phone use, because that's where most people struggle. How strict do you need to be?
During the 25 minutes, completely strict. Phone away, notifications silenced, social media closed. Even a 10-second glance can break your concentration and cost you several minutes to fully re-engage. The research on this is clear.
That re-engagement cost is the hidden tax of distraction. It's not just the time you spent distracted, it's the time it takes to rebuild the mental focus you had before.
On the breaks, sure, check your phone if you want. That's fine. The break is yours. But set a timer for the break too, because 5 minutes of social media has a way of turning into 30.
What about people who feel like 25 minutes disrupts their flow? Especially for creative work, writing, coding, designing, where you sometimes get into a zone.
That's a fair point. I think the 25/5 method is most powerful for tasks that require acute concentration and active recall. Studying, problem solving, reviewing material. For deep creative flow, some people prefer longer intervals like 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off. The key is experimentation. Listen to your own rhythms.
You can even start with 25/5 to get into a subject. And then, once you're warmed up and in the zone, extend to longer sessions if it feels right. Use the method as a scaffold, not a cage.
And for group study or work, syncing up on the 25/5 rhythm can actually be really powerful. Everyone knows when to focus and when to take a break. It prevents that awkward situation where one person wants to chat and another is trying to concentrate.
Now, here's where it gets interesting, combining the Feynman technique with the 25/5 method. Because they're made for each other.
Completely. Here's how I use them together. When I sit down for a study session, I use the 25/5 structure to organize my time. But within each 25-minute block, I'm using the Feynman technique to engage with the material.
So instead of passively reading a textbook for 25 minutes, you're spending that time trying to explain what you're learning in your own words. Writing it out, testing yourself, identifying gaps.
First block, read and take initial notes. Second block, close the book and try to explain what you just learned in simple language. Third block, go back to fill the gaps you discovered. Fourth block, try explaining again from scratch, this time without any notes.
By the time you hit your long break, you've cycled through the material 4 times, but not passively, actively. Each pass deepens the understanding.
And because the 25/5 method keeps your energy levels stable throughout, you're actually absorbing more in those later blocks than you would if you'd been grinding for 3 hours straight and running on fumes.
This is the combination that most people are missing. They have the strategy or the structure, but rarely both at the same time. When you have both, learning stops feeling like a chore and starts feeling like a skill you're actively developing.
For our listeners who want to start today, here's a simple plan. Pick one topic you're currently studying or trying to learn. Set a timer for 25 minutes. During that time, read or review the material. When the timer goes off, take your 5-minute break. Then in the next 25-minute block, close your notes and try to write out what you just learned in the simplest possible terms. Notice where you get stuck. On your next break, those stuck points become your study agenda.
And repeat. Each cycle, your explanation gets clearer, your gaps get smaller, and your confidence grows. It's a feedback loop that compounds over time.
One last thing I want to mention, sleep, because it's the silent third piece of this puzzle. All the studying in the world is less effective if you're not sleeping. Your brain consolidates memories during sleep. That's when what you learn today gets filed away into long-term storage.
So the full formula really is engage deeply with the Feynman Technique, manage your energy with the 25/5 method, and protect your sleep so your brain can do its job overnight.
Study smarter, rest harder, and let your brain do the heavy lifting while you sleep. That's the system.
Before we wrap up, let's give our listeners one challenge each. Chad, you go first.
Okay, pick one thing you've been trying to learn or understand for a while. Tonight, spend just 25 minutes trying to write out an explanation of it in the simplest possible terms. Don't look at your notes while you write. See what you actually know. That gap you discover, that's your homework.
And mine, tomorrow, try one complete 25/5 cycle. 4 25-minute sessions with 5-minute breaks in between. Use a timer. Phone away during the work blocks. See how much more you get done compared to your usual approach.
2 experiments, 1 week. And then drop us a comment telling us what changed, what clicked, what surprised you, what you're going to keep doing.
We genuinely love hearing those stories. They're what keep this show going.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. This was a long one, but I think a good one.
Absolutely. Keep learning smarter, everyone. Take care, and we'll catch you next time.
See you next episode.